94.9 WDKB. It is Sean Lowe here. It is time for another segment and another version of our SBDC webinar series, talking about a lot of great stuff about businesses. I've got Dr. Jock with me as always, and we've also got David. They're both from the SBDC, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. Dr. Jock, as we affectionately call you, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, just this past week, the state has decided to give more money away. And Dave here is really the guy who's the administrator of it for the Waubonsie Small Business Development Center. And he's going to be giving you the ins and the outs of what it's about and who qualifies and what you should do. So, Dave, without any further ado, what is this? What is it? The big grant, the Back to Business grant program?
That's right, Dr. Jack. Doc Jack. This is the Back to Business grant. Last week, it was announced that Governor Pritzker had freed up an additional $250 million of funding for pandemic-era funding for small businesses. So it's exciting news here in the state. Now, one of the challenges that we have is due to the timeline of the announcement, we didn't really have much of a runway. So we're looking for every opportunity to share, get the word out so that small business owners know that if they still have financial hardship from the pandemic, that there is a new round of funding that's available. A lot of businesses qualify for this more than before. In fact, there is very few limitations on the businesses that can apply and do qualify. So essentially, to be eligible, it's any business with revenue less than $20 million and has been able to show that between 2019 and 2020, there was a reduction in revenue. So if you meet those two eligibility requirements, then you are able to apply.
And Dave, what are the grant amounts? I mean, is it, do you get whatever, or how is that figured out? Do you know?
Sure. Yes, I do. So the grant amounts start at $5,000 minimum, and they run up to $150,000. The grants are based on the reduction in revenue from 2019 through 2020. So there's a calculation where essentially the business would qualify for a grant up to 1/6 of the difference between 2019 and 2020 revenue loss. So it accounts for roughly 2 months of the revenue lost during the pandemic in 2020. Any business owner who qualifies for less than $5,000 in that calculation would be bumped up to the $5,000 minimum.
Okay. So are there specific industries that this is covering? I know you said it's every business, but is there priority given to industries or areas that have been harder hit? How does that work?
Yes, that is one of the things that makes this program so unique, is that the state has set up prioritization so that businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic but haven't gotten access to the funds in the same way. Well, we've identified certain zip codes across the state which were impacted by the pandemic, but when we look at the funds that have already been issued, they received less than the lion's share of, their fair share of what we expected these zip codes would qualify for. So we know that there's an opportunity within certain zip codes of the state for us to be able to issue these funds and make a difference in small businesses in those areas, because we know they didn't really participate at the same level as other areas. So the state has identified 173 different zip codes across the state. So if you own a business in one of these zip codes, your application for one of these grants would be prioritized over businesses that are not located in those zip codes. And now, in addition to that prioritization level, businesses can also prioritize their application even further. So as you sort of alluded to, there are industries that have been harder hit by the pandemic than others. I don't want to go through the entire list here, but a couple of them that I can mention. So clothing and electronic retail establishments, dry cleaning and laundry services, home and healthcare services, hotels, restaurants and bars, arts and education organization. There's an entire list that's available on the state's website. But in addition to being prioritized based on a geographic location, businesses are also able to receive additional funding prioritization if their industry falls into one of the harder hit industries that's identified by the state.
So what is we should repeat this often, Dave. So what is the website URL?
Yeah, let me actually pull it up directly. But if anybody gets into a search engine and you look Back to Business Grants, Illinois, it'll pull up the site. I'm going to get you the exact right now. All right. So if it's at www.illinois.gov, will take them to the grants website where they can see the eligibility requirements, and they'll also be able to see some frequently asked questions that business owners should know about the application process. Just because a business is eligible for the grant does not necessarily mean that all businesses will be prepared with the information that's required during the application process. So once you make it to the website, a business owner would want to verify that they have the information needed to apply. Now, an example of this is that in order to apply for the grant, a business owner would have to have filed income taxes for the years 2019 and 2020. And here we are in August of 2021, and anybody who's applied for an extension on their taxes, may not have filed yet. So that is something to keep in mind, is that just because a business owner knows that they qualify or that they are in a prioritized area does not necessarily mean that they will have all that's required to complete the application. So they will want to familiarize themselves with those requirements.
Now, David,
and I know.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Sean. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, there's a lot of businesses that receive grants or some of those forgivable loans prior to that may fall in this category. Are those people still eligible? Or, I mean, some of those are, hard-hit areas or businesses. Do they still qualify for this?
Sean, that's a great question. And I'm happy to announce they do qualify for it. But I do want to call out that businesses that have not received funding at this point do receive a prioritization level above businesses that have received funding.
And Dave, we're talking about PPP, EIDL, the ones that we talked about for months on end, right?
Yes, correct. So if a business has qualified for those loans, forgiven or not forgiven, they still qualify for this new round of grants. So it's exciting. And again, this round of grants, although it's available to businesses all across the state, it is targeted to offer prioritization of the funds to those who have, are from the hardest hit zip codes, the hardest hit industries, and have not received previous funding. However, it is exciting that just because you've received funding before doesn't make you ineligible to apply now.
Sean, you've done your homework. That was a very good question that you have. Now, here's the really exciting thing, I think, for most of your listeners, Sean. Guess what zip code is included as a priority area?
I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and maybe say the 60115 area code may fall in that on that list somewhere.
Ding, 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 ding. Dave, tell him what he's won. Nice job, Sean.
You won priority access for all of your small business owners to grant funding.
The CALB itself has, and the county as a whole also has quite a few priorities. Now, the DIA, what's DIA stand for, Dave?
It is a disproportionately impacted area.
So that's one area, and then there's the county that is also included in other towns in the county. So That's really kind of interesting. So I know you said, Dave, that if I've received some of that money, I might still get this grant, correct?
That is correct.
And is the amount reduced because of that, or it's just a priority thing?
It's just a priority thing. The amount that a business owner receives is, again, it's the same mathematical calculation of the difference between your 2020 revenue, your 2019 revenue divided by 6.
Okay. I have to do the math. I'm writing that down right now. And those requirements of the 2020 taxes is a necessity.
Absolutely is, yes.
So what happens if I didn't lose money, or I did lose money, but then I got PPP money or I got the EIDL? How does that affect the whole issue?
Now that's a really technical question, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that is the reality for some businesses. So for those who, just to kind of clarify the question, but essentially some business owners, when they received pandemic era funding or loans or forgiven loans or grants, that actually went as operation income, right? And so what happens if in 2019 I did a certain amount of business, and then I didn't do that business in 2020? but the amount of funding I got made it look like I made more in 2020 than I did in 2019. Well, if that is the case, then the funding did its job, right? And it helped the business survive by making sure that revenue stayed above where it was in 2019. And so in that example, a business owner would not qualify as their revenue when they filed taxes did not show a decrease in revenue from 2019 to 2020.
All right, Dave, how about this? I'm going to throw another question at you here. So some of the PPP loans and some of those other grants and programs prior to this had criteria that they could only spend the money for certain things. Sometimes it was payroll, sometimes it was different things. Is there any type of criteria with this grant money that you can only spend it on X or Y?
Actually, there are some stipulations, and I want to speak to them thoroughly. So while I look at those, Jock, are there any that you were able to speak to? Because I've got the information here in front of me. I want to look down and make sure it's accurate.
You know, I am shocked that Sean has come up with such an intelligent. I did not expect this, and my answer is, Dave, no. I never even thought about that. But Sean, you are just not another pretty face. I got to tell you that.
Well, you know, I get that sometimes, Jock. Thank you very much.
Dave, was that enough time for you to get your list out or not?
No, I mean, I actually recall reading it earlier, and I don't see it right now. So I'm going to have to put a pin in that in an effort to make sure that I only get you the most accurate information possible here, Sean. Well,
it's just good to know that there are stipulations that go with this, that, you know, you just can't apply for the money and get $100,000 and then, you know, go blow it on a vacation if you're a business owner. You have to apply this back to your business, you know, in some way, shape, or form. I'm assuming there's going to be criteria like that.
Sean, once again, you've done a great job, because that amount of time is all that I needed to come up with the correct answer.
Beautiful.
So here's what we find is that on the state's website, which is where I would direct users to, it says what are eligible and ineligible uses for the grant funds. Well, the grant funds can be used for a wide range of operational expenses. This includes rent, mortgage payments, payroll, inventory, insurance, and other operation expenses. But expenses that have been or will be reimbursed under any other federal program, including programs administered by the state, those are not eligible.
Okay.
So it sounds like as long as it's for operational purposes, which falls in line with previous funding requirements as well.
But you do need to have a loss.
Absolutely, yeah. In order to meet the eligibility requirements, yes. Under $20 million in revenue and a revenue loss from 2019 to 2020. So
if I am a business owner and I'm interested in learning about this, what should I do, Dave?
So I would advise that they get in touch with somebody like myself or Jock here. We are community navigators for the SBDC. We are one of 3 organizations in the Aurora, DeKalb area that are responsible for outreach and helping others. So our help comes free of charge to business owners. And if they need help filling out the application, they can reach out to us. They can reach out to us by contacting us. We have a client intake form that is accessible. I actually don't even have the link here up in front of me. But we, if users are able to make it to the state's grant website, and again, that website, get it to you again. Is www.illinois.gov. By going there, users will see the information that's required or the information around the Back to Business grant. And one of the things that they'll discover on that website, Jock, is that there'll be a link there that says if you need help, check and click Community Navigators. And when a business owner selects that, they'll be brought to a place where they can contact us, and we will reach out personally. They might even get a direct phone call from you or me. Big celebrities like us are answering these messages personally.
It's amazing.
So it's free of charge. If they need help, they can make their way to the state's website, select the Community Navigator program link, which is right there on the main page, and then they'll be given a list of contact information of people that are free of charge, available by the state to help with small business owners with the application process.
So, Dave, are nonprofits eligible for this also?
Well, that's another one of those Sean level questions, Jack.
I was going to ask that, just so you know. I was right there. I had it on the tip, and Jock stole it from me.
Yes. Yeah, this one is not covered in the sheet that my talking points here. So that would be something that, again, I would want to put a pin in to make sure that I revisit and give you guys the most accurate information that I can before offering there.
Okay. So this started when?
The applications started 2 days ago on Wednesday, August 18th. So the application window is open currently, and it will run through October 11th or until the funds look like they're going to be exhausted. The last round of funding, we had approximately 55,000 businesses apply. Here, within the first week of the application being open, we're not seeing that same level of involvement, but we expect that as word gets out, there's going to be a lot of businesses that apply. And the reason that that's important is that if you're a business owner who's listening to this now in a relatively timely fashion, you should know that the sooner you get your application in, the better. There is not an overwhelming demand on the system right now, and there is plenty of capacity for reviewing applications. So if you are in the DeKalb, Kingston, Kirkland area, and you're a small business owner who's been impacted by the pandemic, please get in touch with us. Please visit our website. Please reach out. Let us offer some help. Anything that we can do is what we'd like to do to help.
You know, Dave, you mentioned something, and this might be overkill for the audience, but you mentioned something about a community navigator. Now, we've never been called a community navigator as Waubonsee Community College. So what's that all about?
Yeah, the Community Navigator program is something that was created just for this grant. But essentially, the state recognized that we're making these funds available because we've recognized that there are underserved populations. So, Jack, you mentioned a little bit about these DIA zip codes, which, again, it's an acronym that stands for disproportionately impacted areas. But essentially what we're looking at is, DeKalb's population takes up a certain percentage of the state's overall population. And when we look at the funds that were distributed to small business owners in the DeKalb area, it's not in line with the population percentage, right? So per capita, the DeKalb and Kingston zip codes received less funding than other areas of the state. That's why we're prioritizing these funds. But we also recognize that these funds can help business owners who need help today. So we launch these funds, we make them available. We spent the majority of our time focusing on the technical aspects. Let's get the website up and running, the digital application process support, but how do we get the word out? How do we get the word out on a program? Well, we're going to tap people who are well-connected, invested in their local economies, and we're going to ask them to get the word out. So that's what the state did. The state contracted with individuals across the state, Jock being one, myself being one, who are heavily involved in local commerce and heavily connected with other businesses to help us get the word out. So that is our whole job, is to not our whole job, it's half our job. Half our job is to get the word out. The other half is then to take on and support with technical assistance as business owners go through the application process. So challenge number one is awareness. We want people to know that these these grants are available. And then the second piece is we want business owners to know that if you have any questions, that there is a free support network made available by the state. Highly educated individuals, who are ready to help. Yeah.
But you know what the great thing about this, David, is that, just kind of a recap of here's what I'm hearing. There's free money out there if you're a small business, and there's free help to help you get that money from the both of you and the Small Business Development Center. I mean, if you're a small business owner, it doesn't get much easier than that when there's somebody trying to give you and help you with your business. They're trying to give you free money and also trying to help you free of charge with the application process. You just have to take a moment to reach out and start the process. That's it. I mean, even if you don't get it, what's the worst that can happen? You didn't have it to begin with. So if you're a small business owner and you're watching this or listening to this, either way, take the time. Reach out to the Small Business Development Center. Look at both of these celebrities. You could be talking to either one of these two pretty faces right here. Not this one, those two. But you could really, in all seriousness, free money and free help for your business during what could be the toughest time of your business career. So this seems like a no-brainer to me. I really hope that a lot of business owners take advantage of this.
Yeah,
Sean, one other piece I'd like to tie in there is that if there are listeners in the audience who don't own small businesses but have someone in their social network that they know has been impacted by the pandemic, whether or not they are in a DIA zip code, whether or not that they've received pandemic funding before, help us spread the word. Again, this is free money that's meant for small businesses to survive and thrive. So, that's what we're looking to do. We're asking for the public's help to help us get the word out. So if you know of anybody who's a small business owner who could, use some grant money to help them and their business thrive, we hope that you'll help us spread the word.
And Dave, I don't know if you know this answer either, because I'm just trying to stump you now. We're now playing Stump Dave is the new category.
My least favorite game, but let's keep playing.
You do have to have 2 years worth of tax returns, 19 and 20.
Yeah.
But do you need to have a full year in business in 19? Do you know?
Now that's a great question. So to just explain essentially what Jock is saying is that let's say we had a business that opened up in the last 3 months of 2019. So let's say that they didn't make a full year of revenue. So you can't really, how do you compare that over the year 2020? So essentially what we're going to do is we would, to answer your question simply, yes, they still qualify as long as they have filed taxes year ending 2019 and year ending 2020. However, to your point, if a business was only operating for 3 months out of 2019 and we compare those revenue totals to 2020, it will obviously look like, in 2020, they were a smashing success over the year 2019. However, the state will recognize that and they will extrapolate the data. So if you were operating for 2 months, they will take that revenue and multiply it out to equal an entire year. If you were in operation for 6 months, they would double it to extrapolate it out to what your revenue would have been for the entire year of 2019. So again, that's a really great question. And I do suspect that there are plenty of business owners who started a business partially through 2019 and filed their taxes and still continued operating through 2020, filed their taxes there as well. So if that is the case for anyone, please know that we have a mechanism in place to adjust for that.
Sean, you were involved, and you guys were very helpful. The station, and you personally were great in getting the word out about all the disaster loans that the government came out. And if you remember back then, it was a debacle. Things changed. The portals weren't available. I mean, it was just bad. The state, in my humble estimation, has just done a great thing. It reached out to communities, for starters, that know how to do this, and then put all the infrastructure behind it to make this a very simple process. And to your point, Sean, everyone, I believe, should apply, period. Give the paperwork, apply, and see what happens, because it is free money. It is a grant, which is very important in this, and you'll get a decision. Dave, they didn't give any indication on how long the process was to get a yay or a nay.
Yeah, the process is going to be dependent on the applicant. So if an applicant is well qualified, submits all of the required documents immediately, then they would get a response and potentially their award much sooner than somebody who submitted an incomplete response or something where the state has to go back and verify information. What I can share with you is that here we are on Friday. It's been roughly 48 hours since the applications opened. And just this morning, I was on a call where we learned that the state is already actively reviewing submitted applications, and they believe that the first awards to grant applicants will start to go out within 2 weeks.
Wow.
That is for the state of Illinois. And from what happened in the past, I mean, honestly, I think they've learned from their mistakes and they've really sped up the process here. And again, I think a lot of people, nobody was prepared for this to happen. But based on previous grants and loans and things like that. And, to quote Dr. Jock, it was a debacle. I mean, it really was difficult. Things changed and criteria was changed. Banks weren't really sure what was going on. It looks like they've learned from their mistakes. This process has some legs to it and also has some backing to it. They've reached out to the right people And I think you're going to find if you were a frustrated business owner in the past trying to apply for a loan or a grant, I think you're going to find this process a little bit easier, especially if you reach out for the free help with the SBDC.
And I know that this radio program, is broadcasted towards the DeKalb area, but, this help is all across the state. So again, if there are listeners who, you have friends and family who live in Southern Illinois, and that they have been impacted and they have a business, please have them reach out as well. Even if they reach out to our team, we're certainly happy to put them in touch with somebody who's local. And for anybody who's in the DeKalb area, Jock is your contact. He has personally volunteered to assist with the business owners who are in the DeKalb and Kingston area, those DIA zip codes, who are, again, receive not just prioritization, but the biggest prioritization level that is available. That prioritization level goes to only businesses within the DIA zip code. And again, that's DeKalb and Kingston.
So Dave, I'm a small business owner. What should I do today?
Step number one, you should go to the Back to Business grant site, www.2.illinois.gov, and you will want to review the eligibility requirements. But I can break it down for you easily. The eligibility requirements are that you do 20 million or less in revenue, and that you 20 million or less in revenue, and you have experienced a revenue decrease from 2019 to 2020. So if those are so go to the website, look for the Community Navigator link. Get in touch with Jock or I. Let us assist you in the process. If a business owner has already done EIDL or PPP or any of those in the past, the documentation required is very similar. So you can be prepared for that. But there's free help available. The funds are available. Go to the state's website, take a look at the eligibility requirements. If you need, the application process is very simple. It's right there, and it's technically savvy, user-friendly. But if there's anything that you need support with, there's an entire network of people who are provided free from the state, such as Jock and myself. We'd be happy to help.
And Sean, again, the website itself has some great understandable information. The FAQs on there just lay it out very simply. The areas that have the most priority, very simple. A bank is not getting in, no banks are involved in this. This is the state to you. So it really is a more streamlined, more effective process, at least so far. Let's see what happens. But we have our fingers crossed.
Well, I mean, it just appears that the way things are going right now, it's already better than the process was previously. So, even if it may take a little bit of time to get, approval, but, based on what David said, it's only been open for 4 days, already reviewing applications and already looking to disperse funds within a couple of weeks. That, for the state of Illinois, or any state for that matter, that's amazing. I was shocked to hear that they're already reviewing applications and ready to disperse funds. So if you're a small business owner in this area, do not wait. Now's the time to do it, because if you wait, now you may see a backlog. Now you may see a little more time. And I'm guessing if you're applying that you need that money now, not 2 weeks, not 2 months from now. You need it right now.
One of the other things I'd share too, Sean, is that when small business owners opt to get counseling from Jock and I, and they opt into that process that's provided free by the state, one of the great things that Jock and I are able to do is we're actually able to tap into the back end of the state system and check your application live in process. So you don't have to call the state and figure out who to talk to. If you want questions about your application status, you're wondering, where things are at in the process. If you get linked up with Jock and I, we're able to look into that for you instantaneously. So that's one of the benefits of working with us, is that you don't necessarily, again, no bank that you have to go through. We're trying to eliminate some of the red tape to just get the funds to the people who need it most.
All right, gentlemen, that is great. Jock, anything else you want to add in closing?
No, Sean, I just think that those brain exercises that you've been doing have kicked in, because you were on fire today. So you keep it up.
I was worried, but I feel like I kept up on this one. That's good. All right, there's more information that you can get. Reach out free to the Small Business Development Center. Ask for Jock, ask for David. They'll be able to help you with this process. Reach out to the website if you qualify. David, you put out the qualifications out there. If you meet either one of those two criteria, you don't even have to look at the website. You could already say, I fit that criteria. I'm in this area. And this thing is tailored towards you. You are prioritized in this if you're in this area. So more importantly, if you live in this area, you own a small business, look into it. This should be a no-brainer if you're a small business owner in the DeKalb County area.
You know, Sean, I would have your salespeople out there talking about it so that these people can now spend that money on advertising.
You know, that's a fantastic idea, Dr. Jock. I don't know what I'd do without you. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on this another edition of our Small Business Development webinar series with the Small Business Development Center in partnership with Kishwaukee College and Waubonsee College. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Great to
Thank you, Sean.
All right, have a great day.